I'm LuAnn Cooper. I was born and raised in the Kingston Plymouth crew. My dad was the leader until he died, and now my half-brother is the leader. When I was 15, I was married to my first cousin/nephew as his fourth wife. He was 23 at the time, and I was expected to have a baby every year to build up the kingdom of God. When I was 20, I had 2 little girls. I had an 8th grade education, and I was in a loveless marriage. What put me in a spiral of depression? I knew there was no way out. I knew the future of my girls were going to be the same as mine, and that put me in a deep spiral of depression to where I became suicidal. I had suicidal ideation, and the only thing that kept me alive was my girls. I knew that if I left, then nobody would be protecting them, and I was protecting them. I was protecting them from physical abuse and sexual abuse that I experienced, and I knew that I needed to stay alive to protect them. My cousin reached out to me a year after she left, and she suggested that I leave the order. And I thought, I can leave? Nobody ever leaves, especially with kids. You just don't leave the order. And so I thought, oh, I can leave the order. A light bulb above my head. And I realized it was the same as ending my life, only it was spiritual suicide. And I could take my girls with me and protect them and keep them safe. So I decided on a Wednesday when I talked to my cousin that I was going to leave that following Friday. So she came over, helped me pack my things in the middle of the night. And that Friday morning, I decided not to take my kids to the daycare. I decided not to show up at work. I was afraid that if I was separated from my girls, then I would not be able to get out with them. And so I went to another cousin's house to hide that day. And when I went to check on my things around noon, my sister was in my apartment, and she had been going through my things. And when we went up to the door, we heard her kids crying. So we came back to the car, and she realized we were out there, so she came running out to the car and tried to open the back door and take my girls out and chased us down the road saying, "You give me back those girls. You do not deserve those girls." That was heartbreaking. But we realized that if we were going to go back to get my things, then we could not bring my girls with us. And so we left them with another cousin that had left 15 years prior. And when we went back to my apartment that night to get my things, then my family was there to stop me, and we decided to call the police. When they got there, the police listened to my story and told me they didn't believe me. They said, "This sounds unbelievable. It sounds like a domestic dispute that you guys just need to figure out." But then his partner had remembered a previous story of another girl that had tried to leave and was beaten. And he said, maybe she's telling the truth. So the officer said, "We will stay for 1 hour and let you get your things out." So my cousin brought some friends, and they moved my things out while I stood off to the side with my family and explained to them why I was leaving the order for an hour. It was exhausting. It was heart-wrenching. But when that hour was over, the officer let us know, "Okay, we can't stay any longer. You need to go." When I walked away from my family and towards that group of strangers, I felt a lift of weight come off my shoulders, and I realized that I was going to be okay. Like, I literally felt hope walking away from my family towards a group of strangers that had helped me move. And I knew that I was going to be okay. So there I was, 20 years old, 2 little girls, 8th grade education. I realized really quick that I needed a high school diploma or a GED. I needed some kind of career. I couldn't use any of my work experience from the group. I couldn't use any references. I had no resume. I realized really quick what I needed, what I lacked, how far behind I was for a 20-year-old and out in the real world. So I got to work. I got my diploma within the next year. I went to a community college, and started going to school to be a paralegal, thinking that's what I wanted to do. That was the career I wanted to take up. And meanwhile, I'm working 2 or 3 jobs to make ends meet so that I could support my family and go to school. It was a lot. It was a lot. And it was a lot during the time of the biggest transition of my life, where I gave up everything I knew, a whole world, only to go out into a world that I was raised to fear, while I was trying to figure out how I was going to support us. I went to school to be a paralegal, and I realized right before I got my degree that I don't want to be a paralegal. So I stayed in school, kept taking classes, thinking I would eventually figure out what I wanted to do, what kind of degree I wanted to get, and I ended up getting my real estate license, which freed me up to be able to start Hope After Polygamy. So I started Hope After Polygamy with 4 other women that had left polygamy, and we created an amazing organization where we give scholarships to people that have left polygamy, because we know the walls that we faced when we left polygamy. We didn't have the education that we needed. We didn't have the references or the resources. There was nothing out there for us when we left. We had to start from ground zero and make a life of our own, with the help of each other sometimes when that was available, when we were available to help each other. But for the most part, we all had to figure it out, how to make a living in the outside world. And again, we were afraid of this outside world that we left polygamy for. Some of our founders have moved on from their active role as board members for Hope After Polygamy, but we all still support people that have left. I'm really excited for these new board members that we have coming on board, that have already started playing an active role in raising funds and helping us create more support and more resources for those that are looking to better their future through education. We raise funds for our scholarships in the spring and in the fall. We have a spring 5K that we are putting together on May 31st called Hope in Action. It will be at the Capitol, and it was really fun last year. I would highly encourage anybody to come because it's just so pretty up there at Memory Grove, and it's for such a great cause. All the proceeds from this 5K go towards our fall scholarships. We'll have another fall fundraising event coming up. We don't have the exact date yet, but stay tuned for that. It'll be a car show. I have been out of the order longer than I have been in, and that feels like a milestone for me. I am very proud of all the years that I had spent in therapy to unchannel my brain from all the brainwashing that I received while in the group. And I'm very proud of the time that I spent on my mental health, learning emotional intelligence and learning about what I need to overcome all of the trauma that I experienced, which has put me in a position where I can help others. I know that I can raise money to help others go to school. I know that I can call them and say, what can we do to help? How can we help? Can we send you a laptop? I love calling our scholars and letting them know that the scholarship board is giving them a scholarship and hearing how much it's helping them. It's the most awarding part of the job. It's the most rewarding part of the job.